the most exciting thing you can talk about in church, finance reports, on the Church Revitalization Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast, brought to you by the Malphurs Group team, where each week we tackle important, actionable topics to help churches thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Scott Ball and A.J. Mathieu.
Welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast. My name is Scott Ball. I'm joined by my friend and co-host, A.J. Mathieu. Hey, listen, are you saying people are not excited to talk about finances?
Oh, finance reports? There's 3 people that are like, yes.
Yeah. We'll be 10 views on this episode. We'll get all the way up to 50 downloads on the audio version. I know it's not fun, but we kind of want to hone in on 3 financial reports that your church should make. 2 of them are ones that you probably already are, but we want to kind of maybe talk about some things that you might be missing. One of them, the third one, how's this for a teaser? Number 3 is one that I don't think your church is doing.
Maybe
in
not.
fact, I'm almost certain your church isn't doing number 3.
Probably not.
Yeah. So stay tuned for number 3. Before we dive into that, though, want to encourage you to go to healthychurchestoolkit.com, sign up free for 7 days. That won't hurt your budget.
Not for 7 days.
And then after that, it still won't, because it's
mild budget impact after 7 days.
Budget impact for maximum leadership impact. So go to healthychurchestoolkit.com, see what's going on over there. You're going to like it.
Yep.
There you go.
Okay. All right. Hey, let's just go for it here. So yeah, financial reports. You probably have got some standard stuff maybe that you do show at your annual business meeting, maybe at your monthly business meeting, maybe at your weekly business meeting. I don't know. I wouldn't want to go to your church if that's the case, but maybe you're doing that.
Yeah, sure.
Showing some basic things. How's giving going? This is not about, like on your bulletin, maybe you're tracking giving against budget. That's cool. That's good information. In fact, if you are doing that, you're gathering data that would be helpful in some of these reports, because you're going to have you could produce some trends, right, Scott?
Yeah, that's a good transition to number 1. So report number 1 is the giving trend report. So it's, the weekly offering is just a snapshot. It's just telling you, and maybe you do, like, I think fewer and fewer churches are actually putting these numbers in their bulletins anymore. I see it not very often. But maybe just a monthly, like, hey, here's the expenses for the month. Here's what came in for the month. And that can be, I think it's good information to communicate to people, but looking at that as a trend, so that you can start to maybe do a little bit of forecasting, going, what can we expect, or what happened last June versus this June? What happened last May versus this May? So you can start to even plan for things like cash flow issues, where you might go, hey, we know June's gonna be a down month, or July's gonna be a down month, so we've got to watch. We're not going to put the deposit for XYZ thing in July, because July we're not going to have as much cash in there to flow that deposit. So being able to look at those trends at a macro level, and compare year over year, compare what months are going to be high, what months are going to be low, so you can plan around that effectively. And then also just look even at a broader trend, AJ, which is something that we do in our church ministry analysis, which is included, by the way, in a plus version of the Healthy Churches Toolkit. We're going to take a look at that financial trend and go, where are we going over a 5-year window? Are we increasing? Are we plateaued? Are we declining? And what can we learn? What's our per capita giving over time? And what can we learn from that?
Yep. Yeah, that's good information, especially against your attendance numbers, which not necessarily what we're talking about today, but since you brought up, the tracking that over a 5-year period, when you can see that in relationship to the attendance, then that can give you some other good information about what's going on, especially when maybe we're seeing attendance in decline against finances that are flat or perhaps even increasing. Gives you some interesting insight
Yeah.
that tease. That might be a little tease also for this third report that we'll get to
Yeah.
about what might be happening there.
Yeah. And likewise, are we seeing our attendances going up? Maybe from over a 5-year span, maybe we have a 30% increase from 5 years ago, but our giving is relatively flat or
Mm-hmm.
only a 10% increase. That tells us something. And again,
Yep.
we'll get more into that later, but uh, you know, it's important to look at these trends. And I think there are a lot of pastors, this is maybe an aside. There are a lot of pastors who are like, I don't want to be in those numbers. And I get it. Like, I understand the impulse is to be like, oh, hey, I want to be focused on the ministry and just in loving people and preaching the gospel and preaching the word. I do not want to be sidetracked by what the numbers are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that impulse is a good one. However, when you recognize that those resources can enable or disable your ability to do what it is that you want to be doing, then I think it is incumbent on you and it behooves you to know what those numbers are and what tends to move the needle on that so that you can increase the impact, because it is about the gospel and gospel ministry, not about nickels, so to speak.
Yeah, that perspective or that point of view can go to an extreme that's not healthy. I think it falls into like poor leadership category
Mm-hmm.
by wanting to be so disconnected. I mean, leaders need information to make good decisions.
Right.
And I'm sorry, if you're a pastor, you're a leader. That's the position that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And so to ignore, the world around you is not a good leadership position to be in. You need some information so that you can make good decisions. So don't trend over that direction too far.
Absolutely. All right. Report number 2 is taking a different approach to looking at your budget, or at least the way that you report the budget to the church. So a budget is a plan. This sometimes churches get tripped up on this, especially maybe some of your younger or less mature staff people. They might look at the budget and go, "Well, my budget has $1,000 in it." Yeah, but if the money hasn't come in, if we don't have the resources, sometimes we can't just spend it because it's technically in the budget. Like the budget is a guideline, the budget is a plan, and then but if it's got to be backed up by the resources that come in. But that's a different side note. But the budget itself is a plan for what it is that you want to do. And it's inevitable that you're going to have to organize that by department. And it's inevitable that a lot of what's happening in the budget is going to be going towards fixed expenses that you don't have a lot of control over. Your electric bill and paying for internet. And, if your church has a mortgage or all these things that you have to pay for. But what we want to see happen here, at least as you're communicating this budget plan to your congregation, is to the best of your ability, tie this back into mission alignment. Talk about the impact that these dollars are going to have on your community, both internally and externally, and how this furthers the mission. And so tying budget categories to mission impact results is a great way to inspire your church to want to give to it. If you just say, hey, we want to give $10,000 this year to student ministry, it's one way. Or you could say, we want to fund our student ministry to the tune of $10,000 this year, and here are the things that we were able to get done last year. Throw some numbers up there. We saw 20 kids come to know the Lord through our camp ministry. And then here are some things that we plan to do, or goals that we have set, so that you can tie people back to the mission and why it is we're doing the thing we're doing and why we are funding the thing that we're wanting to fund.
Yeah, absolutely. You could find lots of spaces in the church in which you could make this really clear to people. Maybe we're expanding our small groups ministry, with a really intentional discipleship push. And it could have even been that we hired like a groups pastor or something, and that was like maybe a big budget,
Yeah.
a big faith jump. I mean, we want to add a staff pastor position to oversee groups. well, here's the results of that. We launched 7 new groups last year, and whatever the numbers might be. But yeah, there's a lot of places that go for the impact. I think that's what you're saying,
Or if
Scott.
it's or if it's forward looking and saying, hey,
Mhm.
in 2027, we have budgeted to add this position. So our personnel, number, don't just report what the personnel budget number now goes up to talk about your plans for that position. By adding this position, our goals are to add 10 new life groups and to streamline all of our pastoral care requests so that we can meet the needs of people in our congregation more quickly. Like, talk about why this number, why these things. If you just report the budget numbers, it's cold and it invites all kinds of criticism. Well, I don't know why they're doing that. Why are we?
Mhm.
Give a reason.
Yeah.
And I think that churches are not always very good at communicating the why. And some of that, AJ, I think, is because they don't know why.
It doesn't exist. That's what I was about to say. Yeah. The elephant in the room assumption here is that you actually have a plan for ministry.
Right.
And you're not just like, okay, this is what we do. We're here. Hi, we're a church. We're open on Sundays. And this is what it costs us every year to do that.
Right.
Instead of like, why do we exist? What is our mission? How are we going to fulfill the Great Commission? What's the vision we see for the next 5 years? And here's the plan that we have in place to achieve it. And here's what the money is going to take, to make that happen.
Might I encourage you to go to healthychurchestoolkit.com, sign up free for 7 days. We have there is a course in there, and I'm not even joking. We should probably do another promotion on this soon, AJ. Now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe we will in the fall. But we have something called the Church Checkup Challenge in there. It's a 7-day. It's designed for you to go through it over the course of 7 days. And it helps you think through all of those areas. It's not a replacement for our strategic envisioning process by any means, but it's a great way. It's a checkup. It's a way to go, have we really thought through all of these things? Do we have good answers to these things? So yeah, I would encourage you, go to healthychurchestoolkit.com, sign up free for 7 days and follow that 7-day course and go, all right, have I thought about this? Have I thought about this? And then if it's a good fit, there are you can connect with one of our guides. We have our guide directories in there. You can connect with a guide to take you through strategic envisioning, or you could just use the tools that are right there in the toolkit to help you think through some of those.
Maybe we'll pair that up here during the summer slump that we talked about a few weeks ago on the podcast, Scott. It'd be a good time to do the Church Checkup Challenge. So
yeah, absolutely.
It will relaunch. Okay. All right. Our third report. Here you go. This is the big finale, the big finish.
Yeah.
This is what you've been waiting for.
The one that you aren't. I mean, I know we're joking about it, but you probably aren't doing this one, just to be honest.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, this is a giving units report. That sounds so sterile. That sounds
exciting stuff right there.
I'm a giving unit to my church. I'm
Hello,
so happy.
fellow giving units.
And Jesus said, let the giving units come to me. But the fact is, that's just part of, I don't know, that's church finance lingo there, the giving units. But what it tells you though is where are people at? How are they contributing to the ministry financially? And so as much as maybe you hate the sound of that, and you may or may not want to use the term giving units in your report when you talk about it with the church, but it's going to give you the ability to bring some reality to the congregation. Because the fact is, some people are supporting the ministry with great generosity, others not so much, others not at all. And it would be a really good piece of analysis to be able to bring to the congregation as an eye opener, and I think you can have some really positive effects because people will receive a little bit of conviction when they see some of that, and they'll know who they are. I think one caveat, Scott and I were chatting about this before we went on the air. I think how this is presented is really important. Who presents it is important because, and this is gonna vary based on the culture of your church and maybe the relationship that the pastor has with the congregation already when it comes to financial things. Because this could backfire, I think, in some environments, depending on how it's presented and who presents it. Sort of going back to what we were talking about a minute ago, Scott, the pastor that is really like, finance averse. And there's congregations or people within a congregation that will be averse to having the pastor have financial information. So um, this is, I'm not even going to say, here's what you should do. You would know your culture and your context. And I think you just need to choose the appropriate person to present the data the right way. But I think it's super powerful, and I think it's a really good idea to do.
Yeah, I think this is really important. I really think that it's extremely powerful for the church to see up on the screen, okay, 30% of our people are giving less than $1,000 a year, which is, and I don't know what your actual numbers would be. But that might be convicting for some people to go, well, you fall in that category. Like we're, and know that we could do more. Some people give less than that because they really don't have it. And, the goal isn't to shame anybody, but it is to kind of show, okay, there's 5% of people who are carrying 90% of the budget or whatever. I mean, again, I don't know how yours would actually break down, but my question is, do you know how your church would break down?
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's a philosophical question as to whether or not you think the pastor should know how the giving units break down specifically. There are different views on it, and there's not a right or a wrong one. You kind of need to follow your conscience. And I don't even know that there's a right or wrong one in principle. I think it might be dependent on the leader because yourself, can I be objective? Can I not be a respecter of persons if I know what each person is giving? And if in your heart, I know I'm going to treat somebody different if I know how much they're giving, then you shouldn't know. But if that's not a temptation for you, then it can actually be pretty powerful for you to know who's giving what, because you're able to, leverage that, I guess, to some degree, to help you when you're trying to do things like capital campaigns or when you've got a specific initiative that you need to fund, who you need to go to be able to kickstart those kinds of things. Because some people have a spiritual gift of generosity, and so when you have an awareness of that, you're able to approach those people and go, hey, here's a way for you to leverage your gift in a way that's going to move the ball forward. So I don't think there's a right or a wrong approach to that. There's just what's right or wrong for you individually in your church. But the broader question of being able to communicate about giving units, what percentage of our people are new givers? What percentage of the people who are new to our church, who have joined our church in the last 3 years, have become giving units? And if you're saying that that's not happening, that is a way for you to encourage the church and say, hey, if you've been here for 3 years and you haven't started investing in the church, we want to encourage you to not miss out on this aspect of being part of body life. It's something that God wants us to do, not out of compulsion, but cheerfully. And there's something in it for us when we respond in generosity. So I think these are all, they enable you to have better financial conversations at your church. And I would contend that most churches aren't doing a report similar to number 3.
Yeah. Now, if you've only had one new family join the church the last 3 years, maybe don't put that out there.
Don't put them on blast. Don't put them on blast.
That's the Johnsons. The Johnsons are hard to give in anything.
Yeah, that's true. Scale this appropriately to your particular church, please.
In the end, I guess what we would like to say is certainly be transparent with your financial situation, be encouraging with it, be mission connected with it. We say, Scott and I both say this, all the time with churches, always lead from vision, and that includes the financial aspects of the church. So connect it with the mission and vision of the church, and bring people along into it. Sometimes, we just spent several minutes talking about good information for leaders. You need good information for the rest of the church. People will respond to good information, and sometimes there's a lack of awareness that people would like to be able to respond to in a financial way. They don't even know that the need maybe is there, or how they could bolster the mission of the church with some additional giving. So you might, your perspective might be this very cautious and, oh my gosh, we hate talking about money. But there's probably people out there that would respond very positively. Like, we had no idea that this is, that we had a gap, or that we could really make an impact over in a particular area. don't deprive them of that giving opportunity because of your fear of talking about it. So
Right.
maybe an encouragement to you today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, finances is maybe not a topic that we talk about a ton here on the Church Revitalization Podcast, but it's an important thing. We probably talk about it on the podcast as much as your church talks about it to your people, and just to say, not enough. So we would love to encourage you to go to healthychurchestoolkit.com. Go through that church checkup challenge. I think it will really help you think about, are we really able to communicate not just about the numbers, but about the why behind the giving that we do here at our church?
Yep.
And we appreciate you and look forward to talking to you next week on the Church Revitalization Podcast.